Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Now, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Kurana, coming up in the next hour. India-Angola pledge to deepen bilateral ties, agree on cooperation in marine resources. President Murmu to address Parliament and also interact with Indian community. The US Senate on Sunday moved forward on a measure aimed at reopening the federal government and ending a now 40-day shutdown. Passes a bill that will be amended to fund the government until January 30. Amazon city of Belém hosts leaders as all-important COP30 to begin today. Brazil choice of venue underlines importance of world forest as rising global temperatures pose stiff changes. Environment Minister Bhupender Yadav to represent India. BBC Director General Tim Davie and CEO Deborah Turnus resign following a row over misleading edit of Trump's January 6 speech. Trump welcomes the departure, calls the action a terrible thing for democracy. In sports, shooter Anish Bhanwala creates history, becomes the first Indian to ever win a medal in the men's 25-meter rapid-fire event at World Championships with a silver in the final at Cairo. And on to the details now. In a breakthrough, the US Senate advanced a funding bill after weeks of gridlock between the Democrats and the Republicans. Now, this came as the first step towards ending the 40-day US government shutdown, the longest ever in history. In a procedural vote, senators advanced a House-passed bill that will be amended to fund the government until January 30th and include a package of 3 full-year appropriation bill. If the Senate eventually passes the amended bill, the package still must be approved by the House of Representatives and sent to President Donald Trump for his signature. Now, under a deal struck with a group of Democrats, Republicans agreed to a vote in December on extending subsidies under the Affordable Care Act. The deal was brokered by 2 New Hampshire Democrats, Senators Maggie Hassan and John Shaheen and Angus King. An independent from Maine, the person said. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, the chamber's top Democrat, voted against the measure. And the Director General of the British Broadcasting Corporation and its head of news have resigned on Sunday following criticism for editing a speech by US President Donald Trump. The Director General of Britain's BBC, Tim Davie, and the Chief Executive of News, Deborah Turnus, have resigned following criticism over bias at the corporation, including in the way it edited a speech by Donald Trump on January 6, 2021. Davie will stay on for the next few months while a replacement is found. Also, the White House had recently denounced the broadcaster as a propaganda machine after its flagship Panorama program was found to have been edited 2 parts of Trump's speech together, so he appeared to encourage the Capitol Hill riots. The BBC had been under mounting pressure after an internal report by a former standards advisor was leaked to the Daily Telegraph newspaper, which cited failings in its coverage of the Israel-Hamas conflict, trans issues and a speech made by Trump. Well, Trump welcomed the departures, posting a link to a Daily Telegraph story about the speech editing on his Truth Social network, thanking the newspaper for exposing these corrupt journalists. Trump criticized the 2 as very dishonest people. Tim Davie, who has led the British Broadcasting Corporation since 2020, defended the organization, saying its journalism was seen as the gold standard around the world. But he said mistakes had been made and he had to take ultimate responsibility. Deborah Turnus said in an email to staff, "I want to be absolutely clear about the recent allegations that BBC News is institutionally biased are wrong." And updates from the West Asia now. The body of deceased Israeli hostage said to be of Israeli army officer Hadar Golden arrived at Israel's Forensic Institute on Sunday. Golden, an officer in the Israeli military, was killed by Hamas in an ambush in Rafah in the 2014 Israel-Hamas conflict. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu released a statement saying that he knew Israel will bring Hadar Golden and Oron Shaul after their bodies were taken hostage into Gaza in the 2014 Israel-Gaza conflict. Under October's ceasefire deal, Hamas turned over all 20 living hostages held in Gaza since the group's attack on Israel in return for nearly 2,000 Palestinian convicts and wartime detainees held in Israel. Also, the ceasefire agreement included the return of the remains of 28 deceased hostages in exchange for the remains of 360 militants. So far, 23 hostage bodies have been returned in exchange for 300 bodies of the Palestinians. And U.S. President Donald Trump has nominated John Coyle as the United States Special Envoy to Belarus. Trump wrote in a post on Truth Social that Coyle has successfully negotiated the release of 100 hostages and is going for an additional 50. Now, Coyle led the delegation which negotiated the release of 52 prisoners of various nationalities from Belarus on September 11, 2025. It was the biggest batch of prisoners pardoned by Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, who is seeking to repair relations with the U.S. after years of isolation and sanctions. And Bolivia's newly inaugurated President Rodrigo Paz Pereira formally swore in his cabinet on Sunday at the historic Palacio Quemedo, marking the beginning of his administration. He pledged to prioritize meritocracy and institutional reform. The ceremony featured the appointment of a slate of ministers, including Fernando Hugo Aramayo as foreign minister. Now, Aramayo declared the event a renewal of the pact between the state and its people and emphasized a commitment to modernizing institutions. Meanwhile, Paz Pereira also led a convoy of fuel tankers into El Alto on Sunday, marking the arrival of much-needed diesel and gasoline supplies to ease a months-long shortage. President Paz, with his ministers, led a convoy to restart fuel deliveries, declaring an end to state obstruction and promising to resolve Bolivia's fuel shortages through new international agreements and improved logistics. His administration faces a challenging political and economic landscape amid the worst economic crisis in 4 decades. And Syria's President Ahmed al-Shara is to meet U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House on Monday for unprecedented talks just days after Washington removed him from the terrorism blacklist. Now, Shara, whose rebel forces ousted longtime ruler Bashar al-Assad late last year, will be the first Syrian leader to visit the White House since the country's independence in 1946. Shara's White House visit is a hugely symbolic moment for the country's new leader, who thus marks another step in his astonishing transformation from militant leader to global statesman, said Michael Hanna, U.S. Program Director at the International Crisis Group. Now, the interim president met Trump for the first time in Saudi Arabia during the U.S. leader's regional tour in May. After his arrival in Washington, Shara over the weekend met with IMF chief Kristalina Georgieva over possible aid for the war-wrecked country and with representatives from Syrian organizations. And Mexican government on Sunday announced new measures to combat organized crime and boost security in Michoacan following the public assassination of the local mayor. President Claudia Sheinbaum announced a 57 billion peso state investment for the plan and said she would review its progress every 2 weeks and share public updates. The official said over 10,500 security personnel are involved in Mexico's Michoacan Plan for Peace and Justice, which also includes strengthening state police, the Attorney General's office, and funding for welfare, agriculture, infrastructure, tourism and jobs. The shocking assassination of Manzo sparked outrage, pressurizing Sheinbaum's government to act on a worsening security crisis. And the Paris Criminal Court of Appeal will hold a hearing on Monday to tackle a request by former French President Nicolas Sarkozy for an early release from jail pending his appeals trial. Last October, Sarkozy, 70, began his 5-year sentence for conspiring to raise campaign funds from Libya. He is incarcerated at La Santé prison in Paris. If the court grants the early release request, Sarkozy could be freed and made to wear an electronic device or be submitted to a strict judiciary control or pay a fine. Sarkozy, who led France between 2007 and 2012, is the first former French leader to be jailed since Nazi collaborator Marshal Philippe Pétain after World War II. Sarkozy has always said he was innocent and has appealed his conviction. Well, 3 drones were detected above Belgium's Doel nuclear power plant on Sunday evening. There was no impact on the plant's operation and authorities have been informed. Operations were temporarily halted at Belgium's Liege airport on Sunday evening due to a drone sighting, the latest in a series of drone-related interruptions over the past days. And South Korea's special prosecutor has indicted former President Yoon Suk-yeol on additional charges of abusing power and aiding an enemy state of North Korea. According to the Yonhap news agency, a special counsel team charged Yoon with abuse of power in connection with the order, which was allegedly given to provoke the North's retaliation and use it as a pretext for his declaration of martial law in December. And still to come on DD India Newshour. 21st storm to hit Philippines this year. Super typhoon Fangwong leaves a trail of destruction after making a landfall. World Science Day for Peace and Development being observed today with focus on how science can guide humanity towards a sustainable and harmonious future. And Indonesia honors late President Suharto with National Hero title amid ongoing debate over his legacy. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on, the United Nations 30th Conference of Parties COP30 begins in Belém, Brazil on November 10th. It marks a decade since the Paris Climate Pact came into force. Now, a lot has changed since the landmark treaty was adopted, and at the same time, the needle hasn't moved much on several long-standing climate issues. Also, indigenous leaders from Andes arrived in Belém to attend the COP30 Climate Summit. Their main goal was demanding a greater say in how their territories are managed as climate change escalates and industries including mining, oil drilling and logging press deeper into forest. In the run-up to COP30, more than 60 countries have submitted revised climate action plans. However, by all accounts, collective ambition will not be enough to keep global warming below the threshold set at Paris. Well, Environment Minister Bhupender Yadav will represent India at 30th UN Climate Change Conference. India will highlight its clean energy progress, having reached its 50% non-fossil power target ahead of schedule while pushing for practical adaptation indicators. Earlier, reaffirming its commitment to multilateralism and towards preserving and safeguarding the architecture of the Paris Agreement, India called on all nations to ensure that the next decade of climate action is defined not only by targets but by implementation, resilience and shared responsibility based on mutual trust and fairness. During the 12-day-long conference, talks will focus on implementing the Paris Agreement, climate finance and adaptation plans as countries move from promises to action now. This is the first COP where the full Paris policy cycle is in effect. And the United Nations says millions of refugees are stuck in a vicious cycle of conflict and climate extremes. The UN is urging the COP30 climate summit to provide financing for the most vulnerable communities. That the UN High Commissioner for Refugees says that within 15 years, places currently hosting nearly half of the world's refugees could face extreme climate shocks. Now, by mid-2025, 117 million people had been displaced by war, violence and persecution, and 3 in 4 are living in countries with high to extreme climate risk. The agency says extreme weather is destroying homes and forcing families who already fled violence to flee again. UNHCR warns that refugee camps in Africa could face nearly 200 days of hazardous heat per year. The report also highlights funding cuts, including by the United States, and says this is limiting protection. Now, UNHCR is calling on COP30 to deliver real action and real climate finance. COP30 venue is facing dire shortage of hotel rooms. Many pavilions were still under construction as of Sunday. With capacity for 6,000 people, 2 cruise ship tour came from Europe at the last minute to provide extra room for foreign delegates massing on Belém, a city of 1.4 million residents, of whom more than half live in shanty towns. Some guests have complained about small quarters and the long distance from the port of Otero to the conference venue, some 20 kilometers that take about 45 minutes by bus. In the months leading up to the conference, with Belém's few hotels full, organizers scrambled to rustle up delegate accommodation in private homes, universities and schools than the 2 ships. But green groups have pointed to the irony in fuel guzzling, carbon spewing, water polluting cruise ships hosting delegates to a planet-saving conference. Well, every year, COP Summit generates hundreds of headlines on global climate action. This year's began on Monday in the Brazilian rainforest city of Belém. But what exactly happens at the annual UN Climate Conference? Here's what you need to know.
The annual conference on climate is known as a COP, which stands for Conference of the Parties that signed the 1992 UN Climate Treaty. The treaty, called the UN Framework on Climate Change Convention or UNFCCC, committed countries to working together to fight climate change, a problem they acknowledged all countries faced and was best tackled together. The treaty also established the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities, meaning the rich countries responsible for most of the planet warming emissions bear a greater responsibility in solving the problem. One of the priorities at COP30 will be to create a roadmap to track global adaptation progress. The roadmap will also need to be sensitive to the fact that social inequalities make some people more vulnerable than others. COP30 is focused on implementation, inclusion, and innovation. During the summit's first week, country negotiators will lay out their priorities and gauge one another's positions. Negotiators are joined by national ministers during the second week to haggle over final decisions, including legal and technical details. For many, this year's 30th Climate Summit marks as a full circle moment. Brazil had hosted the Rio Earth Summit, where the UNFCCC, or the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change Treaty, was signed 33 years ago. Central to Brazil's climate finance agenda is the Tropical Forest Forever Facility, a performance-based fund aiming to mobilize $4 billion annually to reward countries for conserving tropical forests. This year, the country insisted the event would return to its roots in acknowledging the world's most vulnerable, including indigenous groups, with some joining the talks. Brazil has asked the countries to work on realizing past promises, such as COP28 pledges to phase out fossil fuel use rather than making new ones. COP30 is also the first to acknowledge failure in meeting the past goal of preventing warming above 1.5 degrees Celsius. Most national governments send teams to the talks. Often, countries speak together in groups with similar interests. Some of the most prominent voices include the Alliance of Small Island States facing an existential threat from rising seas and the G77 plus bloc of developing countries, including Africa Group and the BASIC Group consisting of Brazil, South Africa, India, and China. On the first day of his second term, US President Trump signed another executive order to withdraw the US from the agreement for a second time, but officially US is set to exit the Paris Treaty in January 2026. Aarti Rana's report for DD India.
Well, the spiraling effects of climate change are already evident in the record-breaking heat waves of 2024, the toll taken by floods, typhoons and cyclones over the past 10 years, and the forest fires that have raged in different parts of the world in the last 3 years. Now, in Brazilian town of Rio Bonito do Iguaçu, rescue and recovery efforts continued as a powerful tornado devastated the town on Friday. The tornado destroyed over 90% of its buildings and killed 6 people. The main focus is assessing damage and providing financial aid to residents and businesses to restore normalcy. Also, the disaster left more than 1,000 people homeless, with emergency shelters being set up in nearby cities. And some more weather updates now. In Spain, 3 people died and 15 were injured as rough seas battered the Spanish holiday island of Tenerife. A rescue helicopter airlifted a man who had fallen into the water at La Guancha beach, but he was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital. In a separate incident, a man was found floating on the beach at El Cabezo in the south of the island. A woman suffered a heart attack and died when a wave swept 10 people into the sea at Puerto de la Cruz in northern Tenerife. Island's emergency service placed the Canary Islands, including Tenerife, on alert for coastal hazards on Sunday. And moving on, Iran is facing a major water crisis. President Masoud Pezeshkian has warned that if it does not rain before the end of the year, the capital Tehran may even need to be evacuated. The situation is extremely serious and people are worried about future water availability. Now, experts say decades of mismanagement has led to this point. Professor Kavesh Madani said that evacuating a mega city like Tehran overnight is impossible, and such statements create more fear and stress among the public.
So the issue of mismanagement is real. A problem like this was not created overnight. It's the product of decades of mismanagement, lack of foresight, and problems in planning in not only the water sector, but the other sectors that the water sector is interconnected with.
Well, Super Typhoon Fangwong made landfall in the Philippines on Sunday with 2 fatalities reported and over 1 million people evacuated ahead of one of the nation's most powerful storms this year. Eyewitness video showed massive waves rising and crashing along the Catanduanes coastline, bringing floodwaters gushing into the street. The storm crossed over the north of the archipelago's most populous island, Luzon, with torrential rain sustained strong winds. It was the 21st storm this year to hit the nation, only just recovering from Typhoon Kalmagi, which left 224 dead in the Philippines and 5 in Vietnam. While it is not straightforward to attribute a single weather event to climate change, scientists say that in principle, warmer sea surface temperatures speed up the evaporation process and pack more fuel into tropical cyclones. Scientists further warn that such extreme events can only become more frequent as global temperatures rise. And in Ecuador, over 30 inmates died in the 2 separate incidents at a prison in southwest region on Sunday. In a statement, prison authorities said the 27 individuals found dead due to asphyxiation at the Machala prison in the El Oro province. There were no other details about how the prisoners died. Earlier, the prison authorities reported that 4 deaths reported at the same prison in a separate riot incident, which was brought under control by tactical police. That the deadly day at Machala's prison marks the latest spasm of prison unrest in the South American country. Ecuador has faced a wave of deadly prison riots in recent years, resulting in the death of hundreds of inmates. And in Malaysia, officials say at least 7 bodies were recovered on Sunday after a migrant boat capsized near the Thai border. 2 migrants who survived were seen on board a Malaysian Maritime Enforcement Agency vessel after being rescued. The boat had migrants on board when it overturned close to the Thai border. Details on how many people were on the boat were still unclear. And in Bangladesh's Dhaka, police used a water cannon, tear gas and sound grenades to disperse hundreds of primary school teachers demonstrating for higher pay. Police stated that some protesters tried to push through barricades and hurled bricks at the officers, prompting security forces to fire tear gas and water cannons. Several people were injured in the ensuing chaos and police detained many demonstrators. Bangladesh's primary school teachers, many outside the government payroll, staged a sit-in seeking structured pay and benefits. And Indonesia has officially awarded the National Hero title on Monday to late President Suharto, who was forced out of office in 1998 after violent protest ended his 3-decade rule. The ceremony took place at the State Palace in Jakarta, led by President Prabowo Subianto, Suharto's former son-in-law. Suharto's portrait in military uniform was displayed alongside those of the other 9 recipients honoured with the prestigious title. Well, science has always been at the heart of human progress, shaping our understanding, driving innovation and building bridges of peace across the nations. Today, as the world marks the World Science Day for Peace and Development, the focus is once again on how science can guide humanity towards a sustainable and harmonious future. DD India's Rahul Upadhyay brings us this report.
Every year, November 10th is celebrated as World Science Day for Peace and Development, a day dedicated to highlighting how science supports peace, progress and sustainability across the globe. Established by UNESCO in 2001, this day aims to raise public awareness about the vital role science plays in addressing global challenges and improving lives. This year, the World Science Day for Peace and Development 2025 carries the theme Trust, Transformation and Tomorrow, the science we need for 2050. The theme emphasizes the importance of building trust in science, embracing innovation and preparing humanity for the challenges ahead. In 2025, the global celebration is taking place at the 43rd UNESCO General Conference in Samarkand, Uzbekistan, where scientists, educators and policymakers are gathering to discuss how science can shape a sustainable and peaceful world by 2050. Over the years, World Science Day has inspired educational events, exhibitions and discussions across the world, connecting science with society and promoting scientific understanding among people of all ages.
As the world celebrates World Science Day 2025, it's a reminder that science will always show a way forward, and it's up to us to choose it wisely for a better future. With camera person Alok, this is Rahul Upadhyay reporting from New Delhi for DD India.
And still to come in DD India Newshour. Global Peace Prayer Festival underway in Bhutan. Stay with us to know why is it special. Bilateral Hajj agreement for Hajj 2026 in Jeddah signed between India and Saudi Arabia, marking a significant step in deepening the bilateral ties. And 11th Indo-Sri Lanka exercise Mitra Shakti to begin from November 10th at Belagavi. Welcome back. You're watching the India Newshour. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. India and Angola pledge to deepen bilateral ties, agree on cooperation in marine resources. President Murmu to address Parliament and also interact with Indian community. Senate moves forward on a measure aimed at reopening the federal government, passes a bill that will be amended to fund the government until January 30th and include a package of 3 full-year appropriations bill. Amazon city of Belém hosts leaders as all-important COP30 to begin today. Brazil's choice of venue underlines importance of world forest as rising global temperatures pose stiff challenge. Environment Minister Bhupender Yadav to represent India. BBC Director General Tim Davie and CEO Deborah Turness resigned following a row over misleading edit of Trump's January 6 speech. Trump welcomes the departure, calls the action a terrible thing for democracy. In sports, shooter Anish Bhanwala creates history, becomes first Indian to ever win a medal in the men's 25-meter rapid-fire event at World Championship event with a silver in the final at Cairo. While India is expanding its partnership with Africa, with President Draupadi Murmu undertaking 5-day visit to Angola and Botswana, the first ever visit by an Indian head of state to these two nations. Now, the president arrived in Angolan capital, Luanda, on Sunday in the first leg of a historic visit, focusing on strengthening cooperation in defense, agriculture, energy, pharmaceuticals and space technology. DD India correspondent Devendra Mondal reports from there.
Well, President Draupadi Murmu is in a two-nation tour of Africa. Of course, today is her third day in Luanda in Angola. She arrived here on the 8th, late in the evening. And yesterday she received the Guard of Honor, and today's, of course, the schedule looks like she will be addressing the National Assembly of Angola, which is in the capital city of Luanda. This is perhaps the first ever visit by a head of a state of India to this part of Africa. And of course, this is the first head of the state visit from India to Angola. She will be meeting with the Speaker of the National Assembly of Angola. She will also be addressing the members of the National Assembly. And National Assembly is equivalent to the Indian Parliament. She will be giving a speech, delivering a speech to all the members of the National Assembly. And apart from that, tomorrow, in fact, she will be departing from Angola. But remember, the high-level delegation-level talks that happened yesterday at the presidential palace marks a new beginning in the friendship between Angola and India. Multiple MOUs have been exchanged between both the countries with respect to fisheries, agriculture, marine and aquaculture. And of course, cooperation in the consular service sector has been already signed as part of the delegation that has come with the President of India. So of course, this is going to improve the ties between India and Angola. And of course, India has been a voice of the global south, and India has of course always supported the cause of the African Union. India was, remember, the first country to propose and also bring African Union as part of the permanent member of G20. So of course, this visit is going to bring a paradigm shift in how Angola and India's friendship was written But also remember that she will be taking part in the 50th anniversary of the Independence Day celebration here in Luanda. This also marks the 40 years of diplomatic relation between both India and Angola. And this visit, remember, marks a new beginning, as I said, between both Angola and India. And not just this, it also opens up avenues for cooperation in sectors like energy, pharma, defense, aviation and other sectors as well. So of course, this visit is going to go down in history as one of the most successful visit by the Indian head of state, because not just cooperation in multiple sectors, but also the deepening ties and people-to-people ties between the people of Angola and also the large Indian diaspora here in Angola.
Well, moving on, a special Buddhist festival is underway in Bhutan. It's called the Global Peace Prayer Festival. It will highlight the development partnership between India and Bhutan. India's Shubhendu Ghosh will bring us more on this.
When Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Thimphu, India-Bhutan spiritual connection will also be in focus. We are at the Global Peace Prayer Festival here in Thimphu. It's a historic gathering of Buddhist leaders, peace advocates from around the world. Prime Minister would be participating in these festivities. Also making the occasion special are sacred Buddhist relics that have been brought from Delhi to Thimphu for a public exposition.
Atmosphere reverberating with Buddhist chants, prayer flags waving in the wind, and gathering of followers as far as the eye can see. In a world increasingly characterized by conflict, polarization and discord, a transformative spiritual gathering is taking place in Thimphu. The Global Peace Prayer Festival brings together an unparalleled assembly of eminent lamas from all schools of Buddhism within Bhutan and beyond, uniting their voices for the healing of humanity. The Global Peace Prayer Festival is taking place from 4th to 19th November. It coincides with the 70th birth anniversary of the 4th King of Bhutan, Jigme Singye Wangchuk.
This festival means to be a world peace festival for us, and it is a Buddhist festival between India and Bhutan. And we are very excited to see Prime Minister Modi here in Bhutan.
This event is especially for the spreading of Buddhism all over the world and showing how our Buddhism is true. And we welcome Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, to Bhutan.
As a symbol of shared Buddhist heritage, sacred relics of Lord Buddha from India are on public exposition in Thimphu during the Global Peace Prayer Festival. Earlier, a high-level delegation led by Union Minister Viren Kumar carried the sacred relics to Bhutan. The sacred Piparawa relics of Lord Buddha are amongst the most venerated objects in Buddhism. In a post on X, PM Modi expressed heartfelt appreciation to the people and leadership of Bhutan for the reverent welcome accorded to the sacred relics of Lord Buddha from India. His Bhutanese counterpart, Shering Tobgay, thanked India for allowing the sacred relics to be brought to Thimphu. During the upcoming visit to Bhutan, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will participate in the Global Peace Prayer Festival and offer prayers to the holy relics in Thimphu. Presence of sacred relics from India and Prime Minister's visit are expected to reinvigorate the spiritual and cultural connect between India and the Himalayan kingdom. With camera person Saurabh, Shubhendu Ghosh, DD India, Thimphu.
Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is visiting Bhutan from 11th to 12th of November. The visit builds upon India's neighbourhood first policy. It will highlight the development partnership between India and Bhutan. DD India Shubhendu Ghosh reports from Thimphu.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to visit the Himalayan kingdom of Bhutan. We are in capital Thimphu. This is the political, economic and cultural heart of the kingdom. India and Bhutan share deep civilizational bonds which have matured into modern development partnership. India happens to be the largest trade and development partner for Bhutan. If you look at the trade volume, it has tripled since 2014 to the tune of over $1.7 billion. Now, hydropower projects happen to be the cornerstone of the development partnership between the two countries, in the sense that India helps fund and develop these mega hydropower projects in Bhutan, and Bhutan exports the energy back to India, and it becomes one of the largest sources of revenue for the kingdom. When Prime Minister Narendra Modi visits Thimphu, he's going to be inaugurating a mega hydropower P2 hydropower projects. It's over 1,000 megawatt in power production capability. Bhutan happens to be a pillar of India's neighborhood first policy. Prime Minister's visit to the Himalayan kingdom is expected to take forward the close ties between the two countries to greater heights. With camera person Saurabh, Shubhendu Ghosh for DD India in Thimphu.
And moving on, in Bihar, campaigning for the second and the final phase of the Bihar Assembly elections concluded on Sunday evening, with star campaigners and senior leaders from both the NDA and Mahagathbandhan made every last-ditch effort to woo the voters. Now, polling on 11th of November will be held in 122 Assembly constituencies spread across 20 districts. The political fate of 1,302 candidates, including 136 female candidates, will be decided by more than 3.70 crore electorates. Also, the first phase of the Bihar Legislative Assembly elections was held on November 6th for 121 constituencies, with the highest ever voter turnout of 64.66% in the history. The counting of votes will happen on the 14th of November. And for more, DD India's Deepika Mehto joins us from Patna, Bihar. Well, Deepika, good morning. The polling for the second and the final phase of the Bihar elections for 122 Assembly constituencies is scheduled for tomorrow. Tell us about the preparations all around.
Good morning, Lipakshi. We are right now in Bihar, and the state is gearing up for the second phase of Bihar Assembly elections. The first successful phase saw a very impressive voter turnout, and such is the similar sort of expectation that everybody in not only in the Election Commission of India but also in Election Commission of Bihar, including the DM, is expecting from the 122 different constituencies. As you told our viewers, 20 districts will be covered under the 122 constituencies, and there will be 1,304 candidates who will be in fray. When we talk about the polling preparations, there are around 91 booths which are dedicated to the specially abled, and apart from that we have 300 something booths which are being dedicated to the women voters, and they will be run by the women itself. And apart from that, there will be around 300 modern polling stations as well. And now, apart from that, the Election Commission of India is leaving no stone unturned to create awareness. How? They are doing and undertaking various Rangoli competitions, so that many of the voters can be made aware that how this election can be made more colorful. Also, the task in front of Election Commission of India is to make the voting process really safe and secure, and for that they are leaving no stone unturned. They have been doing all the drills, and now it is the final day where all the control rooms, all the strong rooms are being monitored. The final checks are going on, and apart from that, the Election Commission of India have also ensured webcasting in all the polling booths. Now there are around 45,000 polling booths across 122 constituencies in 20 districts, and Election Commission of India for the first time have ensured webcasting in all the polling booths, so that all of them can be monitored at a single point of time from a single place, which is the headquarters, and for the safety and security of all the polling booths. And this is how the Election Commission of India is ensuring a great voter turnout. They are expecting and leaving no stone unturned to make this phase as well a successful one.
All right, Deepika, so preparations going on in full swing. Tomorrow is the last and the final day for Bihar elections. Thank you so much for all the update. And marking a significant step in deepening the India-Saudi Arabia ties, two sides signed the bilateral Hajj agreement for Hajj 2026 in Jeddah. The agreement was signed after a bilateral meeting was held between Minority Affairs Minister Kiren Rijiju and Saudi Minister of Hajj Tawfiq bin Fazan Al Rabiah. With the agreement, Hajj quota 175,025 has been secured for Indian pilgrims for 2026. Now, during the meeting, both ministers reviewed the ongoing Hajj preparations and discussed measures to enhance coordination and logistical support. They also reaffirmed their shared commitment to ensure safe, seamless and spiritually fulfilling journey for all the Hajj pilgrims. A direct flight from New Delhi to Shanghai landed early on Monday as India and China resume commercial flights. Consul General Prateek Mathur received the first set of passengers at the Shanghai Pudong International Airport. The flight, which left Delhi on Sunday evening, comes days after Indigo's flight to Guangzhou from Kolkata. The development marks the resumption of the flight services between the two countries after a gap of 5 years. Consulate General of India in Shanghai has said that with this, India is emerging as a global hub as people-to-people ties grow stronger. And in a major breakthrough, Jammu and Kashmir police recovered 300 kg of RDX from the house of a doctor in Haryana's Faridabad on Monday. Now, apart from the RDX, an AK-47 rifle and a substantial amount of ammunition were also recovered. The arms haul followed disclosures made by an arrested Kashmiri doctor. According to the officials, the recovery was made during a raid at Al Falah Hospital in Faridabad based on information provided by Dr. Adil Ahmed rather than during interrogation. Another doctor, Dr. Muzammil Shakil, who was employed at the hospital, has also been arrested in connection with the case. And moving on, as part of the Tri-Services exercise Trishul, the Indian Army conducted exercise Brahmashira in the Run and Creek sector, bringing together the three services, Indian Coast Guard and BSF, in seamless coordination with civil administration to validate integrated capabilities across land, sea and air. Embodying the Indian Army's decade of transformation, the exercise integrates joint task forces, a state-of-the-art joint control center and robust operational infrastructure to sustain multi-domain operations. It also validates new structures, advanced technologies and adaptive war-fighting capabilities. Exercise Brahmashira highlights India's commitment to military-civil fusion and a whole-of-nation approach, showcasing the armed forces' ability to deliver rapid, coordinated, decisive responses across domains. And the 11th edition of the joint military exercise between India and Sri Lanka, Mitra Shakti 2025, begins today at the Foreign Training Node in Belagavi. The 14-day exercise aims to enhance joint operations in urban and semi-urban terrain, fostering defense cooperation, mutual trust and regional peace. This collaborative exercise highlights the shared commitment of both the nations to regional peace and security, while also aiming to strengthen defense cooperation and further solidify the strategic partnership between India and Sri Lanka. Now, the annual event alternates between the nations. Last year's edition in Sri Lanka involved Rajputana Rifles and Gazaba Regiment personnel sharing counter-terrorism tactics. And still to come in DD India Newshour. Asian shares rise as US Senate moves closer to ending government shutdown. The 5th edition of Ironman 70.3, the world's premier middle-distance triathlon, held in Goa, the iconic scenic coastal stretches in Goa's heritage-lined avenues. And setting in the Christmas fervor, Berlin's Forest Winter Light installation amuse all in Berlin.
to Jaipur.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana and on to some market news now. The global shares got a lift in Asia on Monday on optimism that an end to the historic US government shutdown could be in sight. MSCI's broadest index of Asia Pacific shares outside Japan was up by 0.5% and Japan's Nikkei rose by 0.6%. In Asian markets, South Korea's Kospi jumped 3%, Japan's Nikkei gained nearly 1% and Hong Kong's Hang Seng rose by 0.47%. While Shanghai's composite index was trading marginally lower. Also, Indian equity benchmark indices Sensex and Nifty also rebounded in early trade on Monday after sliding for the past 3 sessions, tracking positive trends in Asian markets. The Sensex climbed to 267.74 points, while Nifty advanced 84.90 points in early trade. While you're watching DD India News, our time now for some sports news. India's Anish Bhanwala delivered a career-defining performance at the ISSF World Championship in Cairo, clinching silver in the 25-meter rapid-fire pistol final. The 23-year-old from Haryana showed remarkable composure, surviving a tense shoot-off for bronze before outlasting Ukraine's Maxim Horodinets to secure second place with a score of 28. Overcoming the disappointment of missing out at the Paris 2024 Olympics, Bhanwala's resilience and precision marked his biggest international medal yet in a fiercely contested final. An Indian women's cricket team pacer and World Cup champion Renuka Thakur returned to her hometown Rohuru, Himachal Pradesh. The local administration and residents gave her a warm and grand welcome. Upon reaching Rohuru, Renuka first visited Ma Hateshwari temple to seek blessings. She shared that her journey in cricket was full of challenges, but she never gave up. Talking to DD, Renuka credited her success in the ICC World Cup to her mother's support and cited the guidance received through her uncle.
कुछ तो माँ ने ही किया है, जो भी मैं अपना हार्ड वर्क या कुछ भी बोलती हूँ वो सारा मुझे मतलब मेरी माँ ने मुझे सपोर्ट किया है। इवन मेरे चाचू ने बॉबी चाचू ने अगर मुझे उन्होंने सही टाइम पे नहीं देखा होता या मुझे नहीं भेजा होता तो शायद मैं आज यहाँ नहीं होती। मतलब जो इस जर्नी में मेरा पूरा क्रेडिट चाचू के, एक्चुअली उन्होंने मुझे सपोर्ट किया।
And the 5th edition of Ironman 70.3 Goa held on Sunday, with Goa Chief Minister Pramod Sawant flagging off the race from the iconic Miramar beach. The course challenged athletes with a 1.9-kilometer swim, 90-kilometer cycling leg and a 21.1-kilometer run, weaving through scenic coastal stretches in Goa's heritage-lined avenues. Over 1,300 triathletes from 31 countries plunged into the Arabian Sea, marking yet another milestone for the event, which welcomed athletes from 62 nations across its 5 editions. Uzbekistan's Konstantin Bilosov stormed to victory in the men's category, while UK's Ellie Garrett clinched the women's title. Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi hailed the participants of the Ironman 70.3, sharing pictures of the event and of 2 BJP's young party leaders, Annamalai and Tejaswi Surya, who completed the triathlon. In a social media post, he said, and I quote, "Glad to see increased participation by our youth in events like Ironman 70.3, which was held in Goa. Such events contribute towards #FitIndia movement. Congratulations to everyone who took part. Delighted that 2 of our young party colleagues, Annamalai and Tejaswi Surya, are among those who have successfully completed the Ironman triathlon," unquote. And Grandmaster Vidit Gujrati has been knocked out of the ongoing FIDE World Cup, while number 25 Gujrati faced defeat at the hands of Sam Shankland of the United States in the second set of tie-break games of third round in Panjim, Goa on Sunday. Gujrati lost 2.5 to 3.5 to Shankland in the tie-breaker. He's the third high-profile Indian to be knocked out of the World Cup after D. Kukesh and Aravind Chidambaram too faced early exits. and Berlin's Forest Winterlight installation is lighting up the festive season with a mix of Christmas charm, industrial vibes and techno beats. Created by artists, the show also offers skating under glowing lights and upside-down Christmas trees, inviting the visitors on an emotional winter journey. Let's take a look. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.